Alright, so this will show how to open a door. This is how to open a door with a specific key. So I'm not going to show that because this video already exists. I'm just going to simply show how to open a simple door just by overlapping it. And if I close that, hit play, there's my enormous door. As I walk in front, the door will open, and then I can walk through. And then you can set it up to also close the door after you leave the collision box. Alright, so in Maya what I did was created two pieces. There's the door and there is the door frame. They're united so that they're all one piece. They could have materials on them, whatever. Just simple setup. Okay. Hinges there. Exported as an FBX, brought it into Unreal. It gave me this, which is just the door. And then it gave me the door frame. Voila. Alright, so what I want to do is you have to make a blueprint. And it's going to be an actor blueprint. Basically anything that's like inside the scene, just like hanging out, that's an actor. So actor blueprint, name everything with a BP, then an underscore, and then what it is. And the reason you would do BP at the beginning is so you can find it later. Like materials, you would use an M, and then you can find the M's later. And then you double click it. This is the blueprint for it. So there's the viewport of what is inside this actor. Here's the construction script of everything that's created at the beginning. And then here's the event graph of all the stuff that is interactivity. So we'll start off with a viewport. We need to make a new item called scene. So you just type up here, add component, and you just call this root. There's a ball in the middle. When I drag this root on top of this, it goes away. That's the only reason we do that. And then we're going to add in some static meshes. So static mesh 1 will be the door. And then I'll add another static mesh. It's going to hierarchically add it. So it drops it in. No big deal, but separate it after. Door frame. And then I need to have a collision box. There it is, box collision. I can just leave it like that. Okay, so all of these things are hierarchically laid out. I'm just going to drag them in here and say attach, drag it here and say attach. That way they're all just on their own. Okay, so now I go to door. I come over here to static mesh, and because I imported it into Unreal, I can go to this list and type in door. And here's my door. If I go to door frame and I click on that, and I type in door again, here's my door frame. Okay, and it brings it in exactly where they were placed. The only downside is that the pivots are not where I put them inside Maya. I put the pivots for the door up here. It did not translate into Unreal. Not a huge deal, we can fix it. So I'm going to create a new item called door pivot. Oops, a new static mesh called door pivot. And I'm sure there's other ways you can do this, but this way it works, so whatevs. Attach that to the root, drop the door onto, I want to drop it onto the door pivot, but not yet, okay, because I need to take this door pivot and I need to move it so that it's on the hinge. So I'm going to switch to my top view. I'm going to zoom in and just move this over and move that down. Now it seems like there is a lock, that's as far in as I can zoom in. So you just get it as close as you can. You can always tweak it after if you need to. Sweet. Back to perspective. Okay, so now I'll drop door onto door pivot. Okay, now to test it, I click on door pivot, and then I should be able to hit the rotate tool, which is E, just like Maya, and then rotate. Sweet, it works. All right, so now to make it interactive. So the way that it works is this collision box, that's what's going to make our door open. When the character walks into this collision box, it will open the door. So I prefer this method as instead of hitting a button, a specific button. Obviously for some video games you may want to hit a button because you want to have a little more control of when the door actually opens. You will also notice that as I scale things down, it's kind of like clicking. All of my snaps are up here. So there's positional positional snap, rotational snap and then scaling snap, you could obviously turn those off, or you could change the increments, whatever. Okay, so good enough. Over to the event graph. So this is where we want to set up what happens. So I'm going to go to the box and I'm going to drag this in. And you'll see that when I click the box, it has all these things listed here. Now you can't really see it. Maybe if I make this bigger, you can see it. But it says on component begin overlap, click the plus sign. So then what this does is, there's my box one. I really don't need that right there. But when our character overlaps the box, when he steps inside it, this is what's going to happen. This button up here is like the flow of the graph. So this can only go to one item because that will flow into the next thing. So when the character begins overlapping, what I want to do is I want to animate the door opening. So I have to add a timeline. Add timeline. And I'll call this open door. TL for timeline, sure. Okay. And then I will double click it and that will open up the timeline. Now this is a graph editor just like Maya. There's nothing here yet, so I need to add values. So whatever I call this, that's what it's actually going to be called back inside the event graph. So I'll call this rename. Come on. There we go. Open door. Now I'm going to add a keyframe. So you just right click and say add key. Right click, add key. Doesn't matter where, because I'm just going to click on this. And the beginning will be 0 and 0. And the end will be, let's say 2 seconds open the door and then 90 degrees. And again, depending on what kind of door you have, you may want it to open 130 degrees or whatever. I can grab both keys. I can set this to auto. You can see the keyframes or the hotkeys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One works. So now it'll smoothly open, speed up, and then slow down. Okay. I'm going to close that and then just close this tab. That's all this I have to do here is just create this little graph. All right, so now back in here, there's open door. That's what I just created. If you don't see it, you may have to hit compile and then save, and then you'll see it. Just because everything's kind of tied together, and if I didn't save it here, then it wouldn't update there. All right, so now what it's going to do is it's going to go here, and it's going to play this animation. Now the animation isn't tied to anything. That 0 to 90 is really nothing. It's just like a random thing. So now what I need to do is I need to pipe this value into something else. This is basically a float value that I need to send into a rotational value. So if I say rotate, you'll see this one, it's in blue, it says make rotator. And this will take this float value and allow me to assign it to an X, Y, or Z. And then what I want to do is do this. And I want to set, oops. And you'll see here, set relative rotation of what? And I want to find the door pivot, set relative rotation of the door pivot. It automatically adds the door, oops, the door, there it is. And then it has this. And you'll see that's how it's connecting it. Now there's nothing flowing, right? So it goes from the on begin overlap box. It starts playing it, but then it doesn't do anything. Like this goes here, but that's just, you know, the connector for it of what's going to change. This update is the flow that says now do this. Okay, so without this connected, it won't do it. Sweet. So, and then if I wanted to change a different item, like I didn't want door pivot, I want a different item here, I could drag it in and then connect that to the target, right? Okay. Compile, save. This is wrong. I just want you to see what it's going to do first and how easy it is to change it. BP door open. Let me make sure. Yep, that's the right one on. Okay, so I'm going to close that. BP door open. Obviously, you make it big enough for your character to actually walk through. That helps. Save, play, and there it is. So I'm going to walk to it. Oops. And you'll see I have a drawbridge. And you also see, that's weird. Oh, because I set it up. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go to the BP door open again. And all I'm going to do is alt-click this, and that detaches it. That's the word. And then I'm going to drag this to yaw. Yaw is the direction that the door would rotate. So compile again, save again, close that again, hit play again, go over to the door. Now it opens. Now I can walk through. Originally, it didn't let me walk through, like on this door here. I did have to play with some of my settings. You'll see the hinge is still intact. There's a little bit of a skew there. Maybe it's off just by a hair, but it works. If I want the door to open the opposite direction, I can just go into here, grab this, and then say this is -90, and now the door will rotate the opposite direction. Or if I wanted to rotate faster, I can set the time to 1 or the time to 3 to go slower. Compile it, save it, close it, play. And now the door will take longer to open, and then I can walk through. Obviously, for gameplay, you know, typically you run up to a door and you want to be able to walk right through it without it, you know, doing anything crazy. Cool. Now, if we want the door to close, this is on begin, on component begin overlap box. That's what it does. That's what it does. So if I go to my box again, and you can also right click on this and say add event on component end overlap. Okay, so this is what's going to happen with the end overlap. And what I can do is just say reverse. Okay, so that way if it starts overlapping, it'll play through, and if we get to the end of it, it'll just reverse the animation. And hopefully that works. Oops. Yep. See, I walk into it, the door opens, I walk away, the door closes. Okay, so ideally I walk into it, I walk through the door, and then the door closes after I've left it, and I can shoot it. To be able to walk through that, there was a couple things I had to play with. One, on this door frame, there is a collision area. So if I go to collisions here and I look at simple, it may be, it's not really showing it because I said it already. Let me just reset this. There we go. Here's the default, so it's basically making this block around it, so I couldn't actually walk through it. It would actually stop me from walking through there. So I set this to, this is just previewing, it's not actually setting it. I set this to use complex collisions. So that way when I go to simple here, you'll see that it's much more involved and I can walk through it. Then on the door open, oops, my viewport, there we go. And then on this box here, just so you can see this, let's say I made it that big. Compile it, save it, close it, play it. You can see that it's actually blocking the items from going through. That's typically why you keep it smaller, so that it can not do that. You can also go through the collisions here, and I set this to custom, and then I can tell it specifically what I want it to do. So I want it to overlap my pawn, which is the guy, but I want it to ignore anything physics related. Okay, projectiles, destructibles, whatever. Any of this stuff I can ignore, any of that stuff I can ignore. Doesn't really need any of that. Okay, so now we go back, we play it. Okay, so now the door opens, and obviously we can shoot straight through it. Okay, so setting it up to have a key do it, it's not terribly difficult. It's just adding that other function in here of saying, you know, is it reading a key, and then where are we at, and all this stuff. The trickier part is when you get into multiple doors and you get into different ways that they're opening. Just as an example, let me delete my huge door. This door opens in one direction, but let's say that I had another door here. There we go. And then I wanted this one to be facing this way, but I wanted to open a different direction, right? So that might be something different that I'd have to set up. Because the hinge is on the one side, there's really not a whole lot of difference that could happen in. Right now it's set up the correct way, where if I walk through it, actually it's set up the wrong way. The hinge is opening the other direction. So I have to fix that. Yep. So it would have to be negative 90. But you can specify other things inside here, like, let me just set that real quick. Where you can actually make your own variables, and then when you drop a door in, you'll be able to input it out here to say, you know, this door opens on the left, or it opens on the right, or it does this, or it does that. And so you really could have like one blueprint for 15 different styles of doors if you wanted to. The handle's on the right and it opens this way, or the handle's on the right and it opens outward, or whatever. All right, so now that should open the correct way. Hinges, yep, the hinges on that side. And same thing here. Now, if these two boxes overlapped, so where this box and this, well, this door and that door were close together, then they would actually have an issue with both the doors opening at the same time. It would work. It would just be both doors opening at the same time. And also, if you're trying to troubleshoot stuff, if I open up this blueprint, okay, so I'm gonna, come on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to hit play here, and if you watch, as I move towards the door, here it is, you'll see the flow of it, so that way you can kind of watch the animation move, and that way you can verify, like, hey, this is working. I don't know why I didn't do the end overlap, probably just because it, oh, there it is. Okay, I just missed it. So begin overlap, there it is, and then end overlap. I don't know why it's not updating it for both of them. Whatever, it works still. Yeah, it only does it to the first one apparently. Sweet. All right, so that's how you can open a door.